Hi, folks. Super excited to be with you here today. I'm Robbie Torney. I'm the Senior Director of AI Programs at Common Sense Media, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of our AI initiatives over the course of today's presentation. I'll frame it up in a moment, but for those of you who aren't familiar with Common Sense Media, we are the nation's leading nonprofit dedicated to improving the lives of kids and families by providing trustworthy information, education, and independent voice they need to thrive in the 21st century. All of the materials that I'm going to be talking about today are available at our AI hub at commonsense.org/AI. That's where this QR code will take you. And for the district decision makers in the room, stay tuned this month. We're going to be releasing more tangible resources that you can use to support your districts and institutions in thinking through AI adoption at whatever stage that you're at. So stay tuned. Just a little bit about me. I mentioned I'm the Senior Director of AI Programs at Common Sense Media. I have the great privilege of managing and running all of the AI initiatives that you'll see on that website if you go there. I'm also going to just be sharing a little bit today about our research, but informed by my personal experience prior to coming to Common Sense Media. I was a teacher for 5 years. I taught primarily kindergarten. You can see one of my classes on the left of the screen there, the class of 2024. It was a great privilege to get to see them graduate last year as grown people and remember what they were like in kindergartners. And then I was a school administrator for 8 years. I was a principal. I founded a school in East Oakland, California, and then I was a central office staff member. So I sort of have the district hat and district perspective as well. But enough about me. As you all know, we are at the dawn of an era in education where AI has both tremendous potential and significant risks. And you all are thinking about how to navigate that and get to the best possible future every single day. Today, I'm going to be stitching together information from sort of three sources to help you think through what's true on the ground and what that means for our collective work. So the first source of information over there is our research. We do nationally representative surveys and if you click into the reports via the QR codes that I'll post on those slides, you can see the methodology. But these are nationally representative surveys that look to kids, parents, educators with oversampling for key groups to be able to make sure that we're able to get real on the ground insights about what kids, families, and schools are actually doing with regards to AI. I'll also be sharing some insights from our risk assessment program. This is another research program that does in-depth research, analysis, and testing of different categories of AI tools. And then I'll be talking a little bit about some polling that comes from other sources as well, including the EdWeek year-over-year poll related to teacher AI adoption. So today, I want to keep it pretty simple, and I have sort of two key questions that I'm hoping to speak to you about today. The first is, what are the critical insights that K-12 leaders and practitioners should understand? I know we have some higher ed folks in the room, and hopefully some of those insights are applicable as well. And second, how do those insights inform AI implementation in K-12 settings? So my presentation today has three parts. First, I'm going to walk you through some of our research and key findings to take a look at the current AI landscape in K-12 education. Part two, I'm going to click up one level from the research and identify some specific challenges that we need to unlock in K-12 if we're going to move towards AI adoption. And then third, I'm going to wrap up by linking research to practice and sharing some insights based on the research to consider as you are engaged in AI implementation efforts. So let's dive into part one, the current AI landscape in K-12. So I may be speaking to an audience of folks who may agree with this statement, but I would assert that you can't ignore AI in K-12. According to Common Sense Media research, 70% of teens are already using AI, and 40% of teens are using AI to help with school assignments. In my work, I somewhat frequently talk to teachers or leaders who may think that AI is a fad or something that won't change their work very much. They might be thinking about the previous edtech revolution and their experience of that. But as I walk you through our research, I want to make the case that AI is already here in our K-12 schools. The QR code on this screen directs to our Dawn of AI research report, where some of this research is drawn from. So, as I just shared a moment ago, young people are embracing AI tools, similar to how they embraced social media a decade ago. We're seeing a similar pattern of adoption. As I already mentioned, 70% of teens have already used one type of AI tool. Um, the most predominant uses of that are search enhanced chat and also chatbots and text generators, with image generators and video generators falling further behind. One of the things that I emphasize for audiences is that teens are using AI for a variety of different purposes. They're using AI for both educational or formal uses, and they're using AI for personal uses. So you'll see here they're using AI to get help with schoolwork, to translate things, to brainstorm, to draft emails. They're also using it to stave off boredom, to create content for teasing or joking, or to get advice on personal issues or plan activities. And I think for our adult users in the audience, this will really resonate. These are general purpose tools for the most part, and teens are using them in general purpose ways, just as we are as well. As I mentioned on an earlier slide, chatbots and text generators are the most common platforms or tools that teens are using for schoolwork. So, as you can see on the slide, 63% of teens have used chatbots or text generators. And that's just important to keep in mind. They're here, kids are using them. For our maybe K-5 or K-8 folks in the audience who are thinking about elementary schools, one of the things that I just want to tell you is that this isn't just teens. We just released a piece of research in the past month or so called the Common Sense Census. It is of 0 through 8 children. It looks at media and technology use, and it's a project that we've run for many years. This was the first year that we included questions about artificial intelligence, and you'll see that among 5 to 8-year-olds, parents reported that about 40% of kids ages 5 to 8 are already using AI tools to learn about school-related material. So AI is making inroads into elementary school and early education as well. When teens are using AI in schools, they are doing it with a pretty even split of using it with a teacher's permission and without a teacher's permission. And I think in that pie chart on the right, the blue blowout there, you can say that they are doing, you'll see 46% of teens report that they're doing it without a teacher's permission, and a further 12% are using it and unsure whether they have permission or not to use these tools. What do teens mostly hear from educators? Well, the number one thing that teens tell us that they're hearing is that they report that their teachers say, don't use it. That 42% of teens say that their teachers report that they're not allowed to use AI. And that after that, the most common category is that teachers have not mentioned AI at all, with teachers who allow students to use AI or talk about AI with students being the exception. And this is a trend and a pattern that I'm going to loop back to later. Furthermore, students don't really aren't clear if their schools have rules. They're uncertain about this. So you can see here, this is the split of teens who say their school doesn't have rules, their school does have rules, and if they're not sure that they have rules. So the takeaway here is that teens are using AI, but the rules of the road, the rules that allow the usage, or the sort of rules that surround and guardrail usage in school settings, are not clear or not well established to the vast majority of teens. The gap that we talked about with communication is even bigger for parents. So most parents, the vast majority of parents, believe that they have not heard from their schools about AI policies. So 83% of parents indicated that they have not communicated about it. Only in 10% of cases, and 1 of 10 parents, did they report that they received information about how AI would be used in the classroom. And in 4% of the cases where people had heard about it, it was about an AI ban. And there's a gap. This is a missing audience that I'm also going to loop back to later. But for those of you in the audience, I want you to be thinking, if you feel like you've communicated to your stakeholder group about AI, what's the gap that's keeping them from feeling like they have been communicated with? Again, this is a nationally representative survey with oversampling of key parent groups. So we take this finding to be quite indicative of the general reality of the parents across our country. Another thing that I would elevate is that parents are in the dark. Um, One of the cool features of our Dawn of AI research study was that we surveyed teens and then we surveyed their parents as well. So we surveyed the parents of teens and of teens who reported that they were using AI. Those parents were not sure if their kids were using AI. So just 37% of parents who reported that whose child reported that they use AI thought that they were actually using AI. And then almost half of parents have not actually had any conversations about AI with their children. The last stakeholder group that I'm going to uh, talk to here is about teachers. And this is drawn from the EdWeek poll, which is a really interesting project where year over year they are surveying teachers about AI professional development and use of AI. Despite how much talk there is about AI usage and the opportunities in education, you'll see here that there have been some increases in professional development that educators have received between March 24 and October 24. But even with that additional training, you can see here on this chart, the usage levels of AI that teachers report in this nationally representative survey are still relatively low. Only 2% of teachers report that they use AI a lot. Some teachers report that they haven't used them, but are going to start. And then we have some teachers who report that they are using them some and that they use them a little bit. There is a group of teachers that say that they haven't used them this year, but they're going to use them next year. And then we have a pretty significant group of teachers, about 1 in 3, who say, I haven't used AI and I don't plan to start. So as I'm setting the stage here for sort of this first section, the landscape analysis around AI in education, I again want to loop back to my assertion that you can't ignore AI in K-12. The simple fact is that kids are using it with or without teacher permission. It's in our schools already. Kids are also using it with or without parent awareness, which creates conditions where they may be missing out on opportunities to learn about safe, ethical, responsible use. Teachers are behind based on professional development and based on actual usage compared to kids. And there is a pretty big communications gap between schools, teachers, parents, and students. And I think the last time at Common Sense Media that we saw gaps like this were in the adoption of social media applications, which were widely very popular with kids, and maybe parents were behind and teachers were behind. And I think we're just starting to mitigate or really address some of the associated challenges with smartphone use in school now. And we see the effects that those have in our school communities. So this is a critical moment for us to be aware of kid usage, get our adults up to speed, and think about how we can make this rollout of technology different than other rollouts of technology that have impacted our school communities. I'm going to move now on to part 2 of this presentation, which is identifying some key challenges rooted in our research that to unlock in the K-12 space. The first challenge that I want to talk about here is what I'm going to call the trust challenge. And this is trust across multiple dimensions. This QR code will take you to our Trust and Teens report. And this is about trust in content and trust in institutions as a result of AI rollout. There's a number of interesting bars on this bar chart across the screen, but the one that I want to highlight is that 35% of teens report being misled by fake online content, and a further 11% of teens report that they suspected that they've been misled but haven't been able to confirm it. There's other interesting findings on the screen about whether teens are wondering if they are talking to a chatbot or a human, or if they've seen images or videos that were real but were altered in some way to be misleading. And I think one of the implications here is that teens do face very significant challenges in distinguishing between authentic and manipulated content, which in their words, according to this research, leads to an erosion of trust in online information and online platforms. And from our perspective, points to the need for more AI and digital media literacy for students. I think another thing that I want to elevate for all of you is that teens are when teens are using AI, they are not noticing inaccuracies in AI outputs, and they're not checking or verifying those outputs. So, according to this research, only about half of teens use other sources to check the accuracy of AI outputs. This gets a little bit more than half as you get into the older teen range compared to younger teens, but it's still in that sort of 50% of teen range. One of the interesting factors that I'll loop back to later, again, in previewing a solution, is that teens who have had class discussions or lessons about AI are more likely than not to engage in a behavior like verifying AI outputs. Um, the other stat on the screen that I just want to highlight is that only 39% of teens who have used AI for schoolwork have noticed a problem or inaccuracy in the output. And as somebody who uses AI frequently, I think that that number is shockingly low. Pretty much every time I use AI, I see some type of output that is like almost right, but not quite right, or is sounds plausible, but might not be accurate. Just yesterday, I was using Claude for a project, and I was noticing that there were hallucinated citations in the documents. These things are inherent in how the models function, and if kids are going to be using these platforms and tools for the good uses that they're able to do them with them, noticing inaccuracies is definitely a media and digital literacy skill that they're going to need to develop to be able to use them effectively. The Additionally, I will highlight that trust in tech companies is low. So when we ask teens questions about their feelings about Google, Apple, Meta, TikTok, Microsoft, et cetera, they report that they do not believe that these companies can be trusted to care about their mental health and well-being, or to protect people's safety, even if it hurts profits. Um, Slightly over half of teens report that they have low levels of or do not trust major technologies to make ethical and responsible design decisions, to keep their personal information secure, or to be inclusive or fair when thinking about the needs of different users. And in regard to AI, nearly half of teens don't believe that that tech companies will make responsible decisions about how the companies use AI. And I think that this has led, in some cases, to Gen Z teens saying that they're not going to be using AI. There's some movements to not engage in the use of the technology among some youth groups. Although I think from our research before that I would highlight, we know that teens are using AI even with these misgivings. The second challenge to unlock in K-12 is one that I would term understanding varied experiences and outcomes. And this is a classic set of challenges in the K-12 space. One challenge, just as an example, is that the use of AI may be leading to an exacerbation of existing disparities for groups that are overrepresented in school discipline systems, like Black students. So you'll see here, for example, this insight from our research that shows that Black teens are about twice as likely to report that teachers have flagged schoolwork as being AI created, even when it was not. So this is an example of how AI can exacerbate existing biases or patterns within school systems. Just a note for the folks in the audience, as seasoned AI leaders, you will know that AI detectors don't work, right? So this type of impact, disparate impact, is particularly harmful for particular groups of students. Um, our research also highlights that different student groups have different perspectives and experiences about AI use. So, Black and Latino students in particular are significantly more likely than their white peers to say that AI will have a positive impact on their learning at school, and that the introduction of these tools has led them to think about change how they think about their future. So, in particular on that front, just thinking about the skills that they want to develop, that they report that they might change their educational path or journey based on these new technologies, or that they might make changes in their job plan. So this is just a note to not treat student groups as monolithic. Similarly, there are, just from our research, I would point out that there are differential uses of different types of AI across different student groups. For example, Black and Latino children are more likely to use image generators overall, and use image generators in their schoolwork. And that increased adoption among these groups of students also comes with a set of benefits and a set of risks related to these technologies. Similar to not seeing students as a monolithic group, parents are also not monolithic. In our sample of Black parents, when we talked to them about AI in education, they were nearly twice as optimistic as the parents of white teens to about positive outcomes associated with the use of AI in schools. Parents' biggest concerns in general were around not learning critical thinking skills related to AI and giving inaccurate content to students. Although you'll see on the screen here that Black parents of Black teens agreed with those types of statements less than parents of white teens. So the third challenge that I want to identify for all of you today to navigate in the K-12 space is that the risks of AI product use vary by use case, vary by product, and vary by context. And what do I mean by that? Well, we have a project, as I mentioned at the top of the presentation at Common Sense Media, where we evaluate and conduct risk assessments of major AI products across 8 AI principles. And these are the AI principles that are laid out on the screen here. These are things like, do they work? And that's the be effective principle. Do they prioritize fairness? Do they support human connection? Do they use data responsibly, et cetera? And when we look at the generative AI chatbot use case, for example, and you can link to the risk assessment with this QR code right here, the one-line summary of these tools is that these are powerful tools with an increasingly wide range of capabilities that remain risky for kids and teens. And we've given this use case a moderate risk rating overall, based on our risk assessment methodology. We highlight the generative AI chatbots work best for creativity and fiction, for writing poetry, for doing things like drafting emails, revising material, creating outlines. They are good for analysis and summarization tasks. But some of the biggest risks are related to misleading capabilities and hype, issues related to accuracy and the production of accurate content, which are particularly important in K-12 learning environments, the generation of potentially harmful content, including biased internet content, racist, sexist, stereotypical, or misinformation content, and that the safeguards that are put on these models are band-aids and don't necessarily adjust the root causes. There's also data and privacy concerns that we elevate. So that's the use case overall. But then when you drill down and you look at our risk assessments for different AI products specifically, like the Gemini Teen experience, the Claude Anthropic's product experience, and the ChatGPT experience, you'll see that there are different risk levels across those different products because of the implementation and design features that the companies have taken in rolling out their products. So it's difficult in the marketplace, I think, for K-12 admin and K-12 tech leaders to be able to assess riskiness when there's this type of variation among products within a particular category. And we hope that our risk assessments are a helpful way of thinking about some of the differences in design that lead to different risk profiles across these categories. Just to show you variation by use case, I know some of you may have seen we released our social AI companions risk assessment last week. There's a QR code to that on the screen right here. These are different from AI, general purpose AI chatbots, which I've been speaking about mostly in this presentation. And they are specifically designed to meet users' social needs versus provide information or provide assistance. And we had major concerns about these social AI assessments in terms of blurring the line between real and artificial relationships, elevating some very clear and specific mental health risks, actively encouraging teens to engage in poor life choices like dropping out of school, not listening to teachers, disregarding parent advice, having access to harmful information, engaging with inappropriate sexual content, and showing potential abuse and cyberbullying. And these are also chatbots, but they have a different risk profile based on the use case for teen users. So I've just gone over three challenges that our research points out for K-12. The trust challenge, which is different levels of trust between different stakeholders, understanding that there are different and varied experiences and outcomes experienced by different groups across these populations. None of our stakeholder groups are monolithic. And then pointing out that it's very difficult to identify risk levels that vary by use case, product, and your specific context. So I'm getting close to wrapping up, and then I would love to open it up for conversation and questions after that. I just want to close in part three here with linking our research to practice. What are some like tangible, actionable implications of the research that I've shared today for practitioners who are thinking about AI implementation and navigating AI implementation in K-12 schools? So the what works practice one that I want to identify, and this one I put first because it is a super tangible, super easy, super low lift way to get some positive outcomes, is to have teacher-student conversations. For teachers in the audience, when you have conversations with your students about AI use, it's a great opportunity to model safe, responsible, ethical AI use and critical thinking. There are also incredible opportunities for you to teach students, especially older students, how to use AI tools, including some of those practices that we saw were missing when we talked to teens, like being able to investigate AI outputs and verify information that's provided that are missing right now. Why do I say that? Well, when we talk to teens and we that very small group of teens that said, my teacher has had a conversation about AI with me. They tend to those teens tend to more strongly agree with statements like, um, I could use AI in positive ways, or AI might be important in my for my future jobs, or this might change the way that I think about the types of skills that I need to develop over my high school career, or this might change the types of educational plans that I plan to pursue. Um, Teachers are models for learning. Teachers are great sounding boards for kids, and this is an excellent opportunity to give students and teens the chance to see critical thinking and action. What works practice two, for our administrators in the audience, this is really about change management and being sort of a listening leader. But for teachers, there's the opportunity to embrace opportunity through understanding. And what do I mean by that? Well, we know where teachers are according to the survey data that I shared today. There's a large cohort of teachers who are pretty skeptical about AI use, and there's a lot of teachers who aren't using AI currently, with a small segment of early adopters. So we need to meet teachers where they are. We need to celebrate early adopters and build on educator expertise. We need to create learning communities at schools for teachers to learn together, and we need to align with educational values. And just as one note here, one of the sets of resources that we have at commonsense.org/AI is educator professional development to help people get onboarded into thinking about using AI. You'll see that the courses that we have published right now are basics courses. We have an AI basics course and a GPT foundations course, and we have more courses in development that we'll be releasing this year. We've started with basics, just recognizing that over 2/3 of the market right now are people who have either not used AI or have heard about it and are thinking about using it for the first time. And the feedback that we've gotten from teachers is spot on and matched with what we found in the market, which is that these learning experiences, which are short and brief, are giving them huge confidence to be able to think about using these tools, to have ideas about how to use these tools, and to have a baseline understanding of how the tools work. Um, as I just mentioned, about 60% of teachers have no training. When we ask them why, they cite lack of knowledge. So that's the professional development fix, and competing priorities and lack of time as barriers to AI usage or adoption. Teachers report needing inspiring use cases that show them how these tools could actually be used in other people's classrooms or schools beyond just exploring teaching ideas or creating materials. I think they understand how those tools can be useful for that, but they're looking for those hero use cases. And as I just talked about with professional development, we need resources that meet teachers where they are. And that does include differentiation for teachers at different places, but there's going to be a big skew right now towards basic onboarding for the large cohorts of teachers that have done little exploration. Critically, our research also shows when we ask teachers, well, why aren't you using AI, that we need to have community conversations about whether we should be using AI and to unpack that a little bit. So teachers need to hear that there are applications of AI that solve authentic community needs that are aligned with things that they care about within their community, that the AI usage is rooted in the mission, vision, and values of the school or the graduate profile or the strategic plan, and is aligned to things that AI can actually do. There's a lot of snake oil and hype right now, and teachers are rightly skeptical of some of what they're hearing. The marketing is over-promising and under-delivering, and that breeds skepticism. And yet, AI tools can be incredibly powerful for schools. To be clear, I very much think that teachers should be using AI in their classrooms. Uh, the state of public education in our country is really challenging right now. There's a lot of teacher turnover. Teacher satisfaction with their jobs are at all-time lows. And if if we told teachers you could have an assistant that could help you with some of the parts of your job that are the most time-consuming and the least high leverage for student outcomes, I think many teachers would jump at that opportunity. And I think that there are ways that we're exploring as part of our professional development series where we can not only focus on some of those time-saving pieces, but also think about using AI in ways that really increase teacher effectiveness. One metaphor that can be useful as we're talking about teacher or with teachers and teachers' fears about being replaced by AI is this metaphor of looms and cranes. This is Roy Bahat's metaphor, and you can click onto that with the QR code on the screen here. But he essentially explains that historically, in the first industrial revolution, there was a lot of innovation that was designed to replace human labor. That is the looms. Looms replaced weavers and caused massive economic disruption, which impacted real people. He argues that we can think about AI development more akin to cranes, which are designed to support and augment human abilities and allow us to do things that humans couldn't do on their own. We cannot build skyscrapers without cranes, but cranes do not replace human labor, they augment it. And that can be a helpful frame to thinking about AI adoption in K-12. What works practice three? Create a responsible AI framework. This is a strong suggestion that I have for all of you. You saw that teachers, parents, and kids report that the rules about AI usage are very unclear to them in most contexts. There's an opportunity to bring all stakeholders to the table, to invest in foundational AI literacy, and to develop standardized guidelines for AI use in your context. As Brene Brown would say, clear is kind, and giving this type of clarity to kids and teachers is going to be incredibly powerful in shaping the path for AI adoption. As echoed on the previous slide, there's the opportunity here to really start with learning goals, not with technology tools. What can AI do for our mission, vision, values, for the key outcomes that our district or school cares about? It's important to be patient and cautious as you're rolling out this work. You have to remember that AI is still experimental and that we're still pretty early on in the deployment of this technology, and that you can focus on access and accessibility for the technology across your system. And then the what works practice four that I'm just going to elevate here. This is a no-brainer for our school leaders in the audience, but it's just one that I want to really underline. The research that I shared today shows that families do not feel like they've received information from schools about AI. That's just a fact. 90% of families feel like they haven't received communication, and that's a huge missed opportunity. And similar to some of our teacher audience tactics that I described, creating clear communication channels between schools and families about AI is going to be one of the highest leverage things you can do to move your community along. If you think you've already done this, this is a good opportunity to reflect on what's worked and what hasn't, to be able to make sure that your community isn't in that 90% uninformed space. And parents can be incredible supporters in helping families and helping kids understand how AI can support them in education, and also some of the challenges, risks, and concerns that we want to attend to as well. So I'm going to open it up for Q&A in just one moment here, but I just want to sort of go back to my premise at the beginning of this talk and some of the research findings related to kids really using AI, teachers and parents lagging behind, some of the key gaps that I identified around trust, disparate impacts, some of these communication gaps, and some of the what works practices that I just elevated. This is a picture of a school around the 1930s or so, and you can see kids here are using a new technology of a time, the abacus, right? And while this picture does look different in some ways than the schools of today, when I look at this picture, there are many things about this picture that look the same. The system of education hasn't changed very much and has been very resistant to technological innovation. Some people argue that the last major technology that was adopted at scale in education in the US was the chalkboard, and that there hasn't been anything that's saturated to close to 100% like that since then. Um, I think we are at Common Sense advocates for being balanced in our approach. We don't want you to hear that we should be embracing AI uncritically or rejecting it wholesale. Kids are already using it, so we need to respond to that. And investing in educator training, student and literacy, and responsible implementation are important. But I think the thought that I want to leave you with here is to what end, as you're thinking about your learning goals and the goals of your community, the aspirations that are laid out in your mission statements or your graduate profiles, the wishes that you have for your young people as they go off into the world, into career and college. I just want to ask you, what are you using AI for? Are you using AI to do something new, or are you automating a system or automating parts of a system that haven't changed, that still look the same 100, 150 years later? I think one of the biggest opportunities that we have in education, and maybe a reason that many of you in the audience got into education in the first place, was to think about reshaping that system. This is a moment where we collectively can work to reshape that system and make it more just, more impactful, more engaging, a better fit for students. But we have to make sure that we're not automating existing systems, or classrooms 100 years from now may look a little bit like this with kids in front of computers, but not much else will have changed.